Hey there, PotatoCast fans. This is Internet Potato, Doug coming at you with the first round of StimHack Online Cache Refresh. This is the sixth edition of this league. So this is the first game that I played against inniscor, and let's just see how it goes. So the meta looks like it's mostly Red Tree and Azmari on the corp side, and then mostly Kit and Kumalo Freedom on the runner side. So this is not a hugely surprising thing to see across the table for me. The runner deck that I'm playing is kind of a lock shaper with Woo, where I'm essentially using Flame Out and Compile and Woo's ability in order to effectively keep up pressure on a remote and use cards like Indexing and Nyashia, this pretty antelope card in order to pressure R&D. So my opening looks okay. I would prefer to have seen professional contacts in the beginning, but failing that, liberated account and some draw is not so bad. So making some bucks, getting ready, getting Lamb in my hand so that I've got a way to kind of threaten his remote. So he's been calling program consistently for Azmari's ability. My guess is that he thinks that I'm on Magnum Opus because he hasn't seen any restricted cards yet, and that's not the case. What is my restricted card? I think this deck has a restricted card in it somewhere, but he is trying to keep me from ramping up too much. So I'm not super satisfied with my build here just yet. I haven't figured out kind of what is the right balance of, keeping, I don't want to draw too much because I don't want to draw programs that I would rather fetch with Woo or Compile. But yeah, so anyway, what I've done here is with Flame Out on the board and a Dean Lister, I'm going to be able to get into pretty much whatever remote he puts up. So seems like it's worth checking this. He's been drawing for a while and hasn't installed anything yet, so I feel pretty good about making this run. So Surveyor is nice that I'm not super familiar with. It seems scary enough that I'm just gonna, lam it up. So Lamb is super expensive to get to strength, but it does deal efficiently with high strength multi-sub ice, and so it's okay here. I don't really have a great way to deal with it in general, though. I'm super happy with Flame Out as a card, incidentally. It's 7 credits is a lot of credits. So it was an SSL endorsement. Managed to get him to spend a decent amount of money protecting it, but SSL kind of cancels that out. So it wasn't really ideal. But 3 points is 3 points, and if I can keep him from getting going too fast, then I'll probably be okay. So here, I wasn't super excited to install Nyashia because I didn't really want to telegraph that I'm going to be hammering R&D in a minute, which is definitely what I'm planning to do. But things were a little bit awkward in terms of not wanting to lose any of the cards that I had in hand. So Enigma is just so expensive to break with Lamb. I mean, I guess it's 4 credits, so it's not the worst in the world, but it feels pretty bad when N'Golo does it for a single credit. I feel like it's worth it here uh, to make this happen because I've got the ability to woo for Ngolo and then get in. It will be kind of, and actually I kind of messed up here. What I should have done was leave Rashida underneath of the SSL endorsement so that I could install Ngolo with woo, run, break, steal the SSL, and then access another card with Antelope and trash Rashida because that's going to be really good for him. So, yeah, and here this is me pausing for a second because I realized that I screwed that up. So, break one sub. Choose not to access an additional card. I hope. Yeah, smart guy. And get it. So that was an expensive turn, and now he's going to be just like shitting money because he's got two SSLs ticking down. So I'm pretty happy that he's got server one locked down so hard because right now I'm looking, and from 6 points, my win is going to come from mainly having the threat on server one, which he has to respect with Dean Lister, the existence of StimHack, maybe more flameouts down the road. And while his effort is focused on server one, I'm going to be quietly recovering from this turn, and I'm trying to hit R&D. So I finally see professional contacts after getting halfway through my deck. I think here I'm trying to decide between whether I credit up and ditch something, or so that I can install Proco the next turn, or just get daily cast running. Choose to get daily cast running, and the last SSL endorsement comes down. So, my ability to deny his econ is rapidly getting worse, but I still feel okay being on 6 points. So, just take my time to recover here, get some money, draw some cards with Proco. And so, as I mentioned earlier, some of the parts of this deck are a little bit clunky still. Like, professional contacts leaves me kind of poor and with a lot of cards in hand, where a lot of the cards that I want to install are fairly expensive, or I'd rather have them in the stack than in my hand. And then we have cards like Compile, where I can't, where I'm going to be short on clicks and might not be able to use them on a turn as well. So cracks Rashida, not a big surprise there. And at this point now, R&D is fresh again. So I'm thinking ahead to what I want to do on my next turn, and a run on R&D feels like probably a pretty reasonable thing to do if I have some money. So if I remember correctly, I have some really sloppy play here. But let's see how this goes down. So right now I'm looking, and with StimHack or Compile, with StimHack I can definitely get into R&D. With Compile, I have a good chance at it. And I'm just gonna keep him honest here and make sure that he's not getting another Rashida on the board. Yeah, he's got infinite money, so I don't really care about that anymore. So Logic Bomb is I had like 5 and 6 influence left when I was building this deck because I'm bad at building decks, and so the Logic Bomb went in as another way, in conjunction with Maxwell James, Dean Lister, and then Flame Out and Compile and Woo to make it so that it's very hard to keep me out of a remote if I have a decent amount of money lying around. So fine, he's got that going, and I haven't given up entirely on server one, but I'm not really interested in monkeying around with it if I can avoid it. I think at this point, we haven't seen any NGOs go down yet. So I'm thinking that, either he scores this and he gets 3 points and goes to 6, or it's an NGO and he's trying to make it so that I don't have enough gas in the tank to make another run. So what I probably should do here is do a modded install of Ngolo, and trash the SMC and then go for R&D. Instead, I just hard install it and then run R&D, which leaves me with the ability to logic bomb or Dean Lister and then use Ngolo to break this stuff. Since I have the money to do it, like I'm not rich, but I have the money to break this, and the Enigma, which only has one sub on it effectively right now, for double access. So if that is a 3-pointer, I don't want him to have Echo Chamber to close the game out, so got to trash it. Same with the NGO front. I don't want him to have a lot of stuff you can install and double advance in that remote. And I think that there, as I was discarding the compile, I realized that I screwed up by not using modded to install the Ngolo. Yep. So I feel good about trashing trashing that echo chamber now. And I'm looking and thinking, well, I'm not gonna, it's looking less and less likely I'll be able to get into server 1. So my goal right now is basically to try to close out the game on R&D before he is able to get another point. Since I did trash the top 2 cards last time and he drew, these is going to be fresh accesses. Grab another echo chamber and then see the winning agenda. So that's the end of that game. I thought it was good, well played, and definitely felt the pressure ratcheting up towards the end there, and was luckily able to take advantage of the fact that he'd focused a little bit too much on icing the remote to make it happen on R&D. So this is a match that we're probably going to see many times over the course of this tournament. I'm keeping it because a turn 1 Rashida is amazing out of Red Tree, and so I feel like that's going to help me get off to a really fast start. So the deck that I'm playing is it's basically it starts out as a rush deck, makes a shitload of money, and then glaciers up and uses Ice like Toll Booth and Nancy to score out of the remote. So being able to crack a turn 1 Rashida feels pretty good, or turn 2 Rashida. And now I'm like flooded for options. My scoring plan here is a mix of Medical Breakthrough and Nisei, and then hopefully like 1 Future Perfect. And so I'm a little bit jammed up right here, and decide that I just want to get the Medical Breakthrough set up. And since he has Maxwell James, I don't want him to think that he can run HQ with impunity. So since he's playing Kit, he is a little bit poor right now, so I feel safe to advance this once and go ahead and preemptively ice it, so that if he does run with Kit and like a stim, like get some icebreaker out and stim hacks, I'll still be able to soak up his Kit ability on the toll booth and install something behind it. So even though, yeah, and so then with Flame Out, that looks like that is, definitely a strong possibility of a play from him. So we go ahead and get that Medical Breakthrough off the board and dump a Future Perfect because I'm a little bit flooded right now. and he is probably too poor and unwilling to check archives if there's like breach gems and stuff in there. So since I've got a good credit lead right now, I like having Ash in my scoring remote, and being on 12 credits to his 1 right now. I feel like now is as good a time as any just to jam some agendas and see if I can make it happen. Because against Kit, I feel like there's like they've got a real late game inevitability. So I want to get as many points on the board early as I can. Seeing Inversificator go into the heap makes me think that he's probably playing Compile. Well, I mean, that didn't flame out, and the fact that Compile is a really great card. So, with 9 credits, probably a Compile in hand, which we see here. I, don't feel like I'm feeling rapidly less and less secure in what the remote has going on. So I'll go ahead and let him in, deny him the compile install. I didn't really have much in my hand I was worried about losing, so it's fine. So I want to make sure that I keep up a credit lead against him, and there are a few better ways to do that than having a NGO front that you crack. So knowing he's on Inversificator makes Himitsubaku really interesting to play with. So the interaction here is that if he breaks with Inversificator, then in the break subroutine's paid ability window, after he finishes breaking subs, I can use Himitsubaku's paid ability to bounce it to hand and prevent him from using the Inversificator swapping ability. I think we have a brief chat about this because I'm trying to understand exactly what that interaction is. I think this is actually going to prove to be a pretty valuable trick against Inversificator decks, of which I expect there to be several in the course of this tournament. Because putting a Himitsubaku on the outside of your server can defuse Kit's ability and prevent them from routing it in. So, like the arrangement I have right now with Himitsubaku on server 2 and the ability to install Red Tree behind it is pretty good actually. So Roto Turret is like a horrible piece of ice in this case because it's going to be like 2 credits to break with nanotech. But I wanted something that can support the early rush in this deck, and having a sentry that ends the run. There's not a lot of them in the cash refresh pool, so it's fine. Anyway, we have a little chat over here. And I'm thinking that considering that he's got Maxwell James on the board and has just swapped my ice over to server 2, he's hopefully going to try to run server 2 and take that bait, especially since I didn't use Red Tree to install the ice, a second ice over HQ. And this is just basically me trying to grind out his ability to lock me. So being able to get rid of a couple of compiles, maybe a couple of SMCs, run down his flameout counters, is the game that I'm playing right now. So I'm trying really hard to sell this bluff, install an ice that he's going to have to deal with. He does crack SMC to get Inversificator, and and also puts it on flame out, which is convenient for me because that means it'll get trashed at the end of the run. Does his thing, and then gives me a chance to both bust the NGO front, and also since he's only on 2 credits, I still get to keep the Ash in the remote. So I'm not good enough in math to know that was what was going to happen, but I'm really happy that it worked out that way. Because like his econ is getting better, but right now when I'm looking at an IPO in hand, and I know that I've got 2 more Rashidas, and I don't think I've seen any hedge funds yet even. I feel like I've got a lot of money coming my way. So since he's on 4 credits right now with no relevant breakers installed, I feel like he's going to have to dig a little bit. 2 compiles already in the bin, all of his SMCs in the bin. He's going to have to dig a little bit before he can threaten that remote again. So I'm going to try to jam out this Nisei. Incidentally, I think that he probably should have been hitting R&D, at least to get me to spread my ice a little bit or burn my red tree ability. So I think this time I do use the trick with Himitsu Bako to soak up his kit ability in Inversificator. And thanks to the awesome devs at Jinteki.net, it looks like this interaction totally works correctly. The UI gets a little bit funky for a second, so I'll just jabber for a little bit while we work this out. So like from where I'm standing, having 13 credits and being on 4 points with another 2 that I'm pretty confident of getting here, is good. But I also feel like he is not losing a ton of tempo on in terms of credits at least on these runs that he's making on my scoring remote. So like he needs to eventually he will run out of compiles and stuff like that. And I'm just kind of trying to wear him out a little bit. Anyway, so let's give it a shot. I've told him what I was planning to do. Great, we're good. Awesome. So go ahead, get the other, get the Bako back in there. And block him from getting in and having to deal with the ashtrays and stuff like that. So I'm liking seeing Rashida here. Basically, like where I'm at right now is I feel like I'm definitely in a good spot score wise, but I'm getting a little bit poor, and he's getting he's not losing the tempo I want him to lose in terms of being able to attack the remote, and he's only just now starting to pay attention to R&D, but he's probably going to be ratcheting up pressure on that as time goes on. With Rashida in hand, I feel like it was worth it to make him pay through the indexing run, and then I'd choose to Nisei him, which I think was probably a bad call. Probably should have Um, let him go ahead, hit the indexing, maybe even let him make the follow-up run, and just take a turn or two to recover econ, and be able to put the brain trust in the remote and hopefully score it out. But at any rate, I wasn't looking. That was the Rashida that went in there, I think. At any rate, my game plan right now is to, or maybe that was the Floodic? Okay, no. Is to basically just keep on putting stuff into this remote and prevent him from, basically just keep on grinding out his econ and keeping him from drawing cards to get the events that he would need to reliably pressure me. So trying to figure out whether it makes sense to res Ash and just get a couple of bucks from him. I choose to do that, and I haven't really crunched the numbers on it. I think pay 2 to res it, make him spend an additional 4. So it's like a 2 credit swing my way, and then in a 5 credit swing if he chooses to trash Ash. So anyway, he does, and here, like if I had not gone with that roto turret play, I would be in great shape right now because I would have the money I need to keep him out for another turn. Or I could have Nisei'd him last turn. Whatever. There's a lot of ways that could have gone. But I think that the way that I chose was not great. So here I'm actually super worried that he's going to play Infiltration and expose this card. My plan is basically just going to be to keep windmilling stuff into server 2 and hope that it taxes him out too much. Having drawn the snare, I also want to make sure that I have enough money to threaten a snare. So I'm going to go ahead and gain some credits this turn, and then next turn my plan will be to gain credits and start alternating agendas and snares into server 2 until he either hits a snare and loses enough tempo that I can just score out honestly, or I can sneak one past him. So I'm playing Envelope instead of Kakugo in this deck, which I think is its most similar point of comparison. Because Lamb is so popular, and it's like really expensive to break with Envelope with Lamb, because you have to boost it and then break all the subs. So it's like 5 credits to break it, as opposed to 2 credits and a net damage for Kakugo. So I'm not really trying to get a flatline or get the runner into a situation where they can't steal Obokata. The restricted card in this deck is actually Estelle Moons, which we haven't seen a single one of yet. But, that's how it goes sometimes. So, paid a lot of money for that toll booth, and having seen what he's doing and it sucks because I'm actually too poor to score that agenda this turn, so that was more bad planning. Here I ditched an Envelope because I forgot about the reason that I had it in this deck, and I thought, oh, well, he's already got a barrier breaker out, so it's not going to be that useful. So another Maxwell James comes down, and I think they're super strong in this. Fuck, what did I just do? I think they're super strong in this format. So with Inversificator, he can hit the Himitsubaku, back to HQ, leaving me with 2 ice that he can break with Inversificator. He doesn't even have to deal with the toll booth because he can de-res it and I can't re-res it. So, yeah, that was more miscalculations that kind of are cascading down from that initial decision to install the rotor turret over R&D and pay the 4 credits to res it. So here I'm still probably too poor to do anything useful because I can't res that toll booth, so my remote is pretty weak. Toss the second envelope because I'm still dumb. Yeah, and now that he's got some real econ going, a full suite of breakers, same old thing. And with Cyber Delay, he can make free runs on HQ, feeling pretty bad. But luckily, he hit the one of snare in my hand, and that finished it. Because I do think that, like, what I would have to do is get some money, pump IPO, and then get back to windmilling stuff into that remote with the hope of him eventually, basically just running out of gas. So that's the end of that game. It was really fun. Great games by inniscor. And I was overall pretty happy with how my corp deck did. My runner deck still feels really clunky to me, and it wasn't helped by the fact that I made a couple of misplays. So I'm trying to figure out how to improve it. I think that while Maxwell James is really good, his main benefit in that deck is giving me something to do with HQ accesses because I don't really have any HQ multi-access, and being able to put him down and make the corp feel like they have to ice HQ to keep the remote safe is okay, but it's not as high impact as I'd like it to be. So yeah, so I'll try to figure it out. See whether there's some mixing up professional contacts, Maxwell James, that would help me shore up some of the weaknesses in that deck. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and hope that you enjoy the rest of the coverage from StimHack Online Cache Refresh Round 6. So again, big thanks to Fighting Walloon for organizing this, and for the great community of players that surrounds this event.